So is Polo 67 the Eau de Parfum another compliment getter like the EDT? I mean, it does build upon the original, but it does go in a slightly different direction. So if you watch my review of the original Ralph Lauren Polo 67, the Eau de Toilette, then you know that I rated it highly. So let's talk about the Eau de Parfum, what it smells like, if it's another compliment getter, if it has good performance, and a lot more. So there are so many notes that I'm gonna list them below. So I'm gonna spray on the Eau de Parfum on my right arm, and just as a reference, the EDT on my left. Right away in the opening, you're definitely getting a bit of that fantastic Polo 67 DNA. This definitely reminds me a bit of the original. And to me, the Eau de Parfum opens up with a really nice dose of freshness. You're getting a bit of citrusy freshness together with some of the lavender from the original. So I really enjoy the opening. However, right away, there's definitely a bit of a twist. The citrus in the Eau de Parfum is definitely a bit different if you compare it to that of the Eau de Toilette. And I do feel its freshness is not as intensely bright as it is in the original. And I think the reason for that is that the Eau de Parfum has a slightly warm, spicy kick to it, which doesn't exist in the same way in the original. So the heart of it is where I feel the differences between the Eau de Parfum and the OG Eau de Toilette comes through in a more noticeable way. But the star of the Eau de Parfum, much like the Eau de Toilette, is still the pineapple. You're getting this really juicy and sweet pineapple. However, since this has a bit of spicy warmth to it, that pineapple doesn't come across as fresh as it does in the OG. And the fruitiness and sweetness from the pineapple is basically blended with a bit of the freshness from the citrus and lavender. And to me, it's basically a mix of freshness, fruitiness, and you also still get a bit of that spicy warmth around it. And the dry down of Polo 67, the Eau de Parfum, is basically where the whole thing moves into a base that to my nose is a combination of smooth woodiness, fruitiness and sweetness from pineapple, and you still have a bit of the aromatic freshness from lavender. I can barely pick up on any of the citrus that I got in the opening. So what Polo 67, the Eau de Parfum, is basically all about is what I feel is a nuanced kind of freshness together with a bit of spicy warmth. The main star, or one of the main star, is definitely the fruitiness and sweetness from pineapple. And when the whole thing dries down, in comes a prominent but incredibly smooth dose of woodiness that in a way sort of helps balance up that intense, juicy fruitiness and sweetness and the freshness. I am going to do a proper comparison of the Eau de Parfum and the OG Eau de Toilette, but in a nutshell, I do feel these definitely are based on the same sort of a core scent DNA. But the Eau de Parfum definitely takes that DNA in a slightly less intensely fresh direction, and also something where I feel its fruitiness and sweetness is a bit more intense. So sort of a simplified, I do feel that the Eau de Parfum is a slightly darker, more sweet version of the Eau de Toilette that's less fresh. The main stars of the Eau de Toilette are definitely its nuanced dose of freshness together with the fruitiness and sweetness from pineapple. Whereas in the Eau de Parfum, I actually probably feel that the main stars are the fruitiness and sweetness from the pineapple together with its quite a rich dose of woodiness. A key difference though is that the dry down of the Eau de Parfum has bit of amber warmth and shine, a gorgeous but soft dose of amber warmth and shine, and I'm really not getting that in the same way in the Eau de Toilette. So let's talk about compliments and mass appeal. If you worn the OG Eau de Toilette quite a bit while being out and about, then you know what a compliment getter this one is. The Eau de Parfum basically takes that DNA in a slightly different direction, but when it comes to compliments, it's definitely another compliment getter. But its slightly warmer and richer scent will appeal more to those who enjoy that. So far, I've received more compliments from the Eau de Toilette, but I also want it more. When it comes to the performance, I'm getting sort of a similar projection and longevity as I do with the OG. And at least on my skin, this definitely is above average. So performance can vary a lot from person to person, but at least on my skin, the scent cloud is very noticeable, at least for like the first couple of hours. But with that said, Polo 67, the Eau de Parfum, at least on my skin, is definitely not a beast mode kind of fragrance. So let's talk about the vibe of the Eau de Parfum. I do feel, since it retains a bit of that core DNA from the original, I do feel this still has a bit of that playfulness, sexiness and flirtiness of the OG. But at the same time, since this is a bit richer, a bit warmer and definitely quite a bit woodier, I also feel this takes that DNA in a slightly less playful and instead more classy and elegant direction. But I mean, the main vibe you're gonna get from the Eau de Parfum is definitely something that is quite playful, sexy and flirty. So let's talk a bit about usage, so like seasons and occasions. I do feel this, much like the EDT, is something you can wear throughout the year. But where I feel the OG leans a bit more towards spring and summer thanks to its more intensely fresh side, I do feel this is a bit more suitable as an everyday kind of fragrance that you can wear throughout the year. I do feel the Eau de Parfum has a bit more depth to it if you compare it to the OG EDT. However, with that said, you can definitely enjoy wearing the Eau de Parfum throughout the summer, and I highly recommend wearing the Eau de Parfum on summer nights. But I mean, at least for me, when choosing between these two on a warm summer day, I'm definitely gonna reach for the Eau de Toilette more thanks to its more noticeable dose of freshness. As for occasions, pretty much the same as the Eau de Toilette, so I do feel you can use the Eau de Parfum to pretty much any occasion. But with that said, thanks to its playful, sexy and flirty vibe, I do feel the Eau de Parfum is a great choice when going out or for date nights. So who is Ralph Lauren Polo 67, the Eau de Parfum for? I think the sort of a baseline here is that you should know that you enjoy fruity and fruity sweet fragrances. And if you absolutely love the scent of pineapple in fragrances, then yeah, this is definitely for you. And if you think you would enjoy a dose of pineapple together with a nuanced dose of freshness and quite a prominent but smooth dose of woodiness, then this is probably for you. I also feel that if you're someone who absolutely loves the Eau de Toilette, then you most likely love the Eau de Parfum as well. Just remember that the Eau de Parfum is a bit less fresh. Make sure you stay away if you do not enjoy any kind of fruitiness or sweetness in fragrances. So let's quickly go through some of the alternatives, and the main one is definitely the OG Eau de Toilette. And I do recommend to go back to the part in this video where I compare these two in more detail. But to sort of simplify it all, I do feel that the Eau de Parfum is a slightly richer, slightly warmer, slightly less fresh version of the EDT. The Eau de Toilette is if you want a more intense dose of its gorgeous freshness. Polo 67, the Eau de Parfum Extreme, is of course another alternative. But here's the thing, the differences between the Eau de Parfum Extreme and the Eau de Parfum are bigger if you compare it to the EDT versus the Eau de Parfum. The Eau de Parfum Extreme is a gorgeous take on that DNA. However, this is where they took a bit of that DNA and combined it with a leather accord. So the Eau de Parfum Extreme is basically where you're getting a bit of that DNA together with a very prominent but also very smooth dose of leather. And the Extreme is basically where they took that DNA in a more mature and elegant direction. So when it comes to price, I paid around 70 bucks for 125 ml of this, which makes it slightly more expensive if you compare it to what I paid for the OG EDT. But even so, if I compare the amount of juice and the quality, at least to my nose, what I'm getting from this, I do feel that for what you pay for this and the value you're getting is really good. And I mean, if you compare it to what I usually pay for designer fragrances, this is a lot less expensive. But here's the thing, make sure you don't buy at retail prices. Make sure you have a proper look around at discounters. So what are my final thoughts on Ralph Lauren Polo 67, the Eau de Parfum, and how am I going to rate it from 1 to 10? So the Eau de Toilette is a banger of a scent, and I do feel definitely that the Eau de Parfum builds upon the EDT but goes in a slightly less intensely fresh direction, and instead in a direction that I feel is a bit more rich, is a bit warmer, and definitely a bit more sweet, and that you get a bit more depth from the Eau de Parfum. And I definitely like this version a lot, and to my nose the Eau de Parfum is definitely worth at least a 9. Make sure you check out my review of the original over there. Like and subscribe, thank you, I really do appreciate it, and make sure you let me know in the comments your thoughts on Polo 67, the Eau de Parfum.